For an even deeper dive, we're joined now by someone who has an intimate understanding of this very courthouse. Jeremy Saland is a former prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office. It's good to see you. I want to pick up on some of what Caitlin just ended with. She was talking about the reporting that we're getting from inside the courtroom that one of the attorneys for the prosecution had asked everyone whether they'd be able to return a guilty verdict if they could look the defendant in the eye and do that. They said yes, as Caitlin noted out. We also have a note that Donald Trump was looking at them, appeared to be looking a lot of them in the box as they answered that question. In your experience, what is it like for a potential juror to be in a courtroom where they can see that defendant in this moment, especially when it is such a high-profile person?
Absolutely. On the defense side, you want to humanize that client of yours. You want to humanize and give compassion and empathy, or to build that up for the jury. And the jury will sometimes do so, and sometimes they won't. And you want them, as a defendant, to look that juror in the eye so that they can see who they are. But at the same time, the prosecution is asking because they don't want to be hoodwinked or fooled by who the person is sitting there. They want to make sure that despite how he looks, despite how he may behave, they can hold him to that burden and prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's a little bit playmanship, a little bit of gamesmanship, and as much as you can interact with that jury, that is so critical. It can't just be yes or no answers and questions. You have to engage them and see how they respond and how they respond to you in words and in their body language too.
The prosecutor laying out there too that they would hear from some witnesses who might have some edge in his words, referring to some of the witnesses, and that it would be important as to whether they could set aside likability versus credibility. They don't have to like the witness, but could they find the witness credible even if they didn't like them? How much of a hurdle could that be when you look at some of the witnesses in this case?
Yeah, it's a big hurdle, and Michael Cohen. Obviously none of us know him personally, but he has a lot of baggage, and you have to say to yourself, can you still find him credible even though he's admitted lying? Can you still believe him even though he may have been up to fraud and he's been convicted of a crime? There was a saying as a prosecutor that we heard from the top down when under Morgenthau that even someone who is guilty of robbery in the past or guilty of drug dealing in the past can still be a victim of a crime. So in other words, whether or not you like that person, whether or not you think he's a good person, whether or not you'd want him to be your neighbor, that's not the question here. The question is, can you find them credible and can you listen to their testimony fairly and objectively, no matter who they are, no matter where they're from, no matter their history.
Also interesting to note, the prosecutor also asked if anybody felt that they needed to prove more because of Donald Trump's position, because of course he's the former president. Notably, not a hand was raised among those 18 prospective jurors. Jeremy, appreciate your insight and your expertise. Thanks for being with us.